Good evening, Rhinebeck community. My name is Eric Latinsky, and I'm the superintendent of schools. For those of you who are watching live, I hope you're enjoying the final days of summer. We are ready for the start of school on September 1st. Tonight, our administrative team will explain key points of our 2021-22 COVID operation plan. Everything we are about to discuss is a product of either our experience from last year or new guidance from our government agencies. Despite the fact that we ended last year with a decline in COVID cases amongst our students, and the fact that our summer school was COVID-free, we will be starting this year conscious of the Delta variant. Mr. Bavaro, please advance the slide. Thank you. The New York State Department of Health ultimately decided not to offer any guidance to schools other than to say, follow the CDC. The New York State Department of Education has issued guidance which does follow the CDC. Our operation plan is therefore heavily influenced by the CDC's guidance for COVID-19 prevention in K-12 schools from August 5th, and the State Education Department's Health and Safety Guide for the 2021-22 school year from August 12th. The Westchester County Department of Health, whom we meet with every Monday morning, is also an important source of information for the safety of our students and staff. You'll notice at the bottom of this slide that we have a question option. So if you email to Q&A@rhinebeck.org, just as it's spelled there, we're going to do our best to answer the questions during this presentation. Some questions are going to come in that we will have answered in our presentation. In other words, we're not going to have to stop and make a special answer segment. So if you're asking a question in which it's included on our slide, we're just going to go through and your question should be answered. When we get to the end, depending on how many questions we have, we'll do our best to stay on and answer as many as we can. If there are questions we do not get to answer, then we'll answer specifically via email. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Corinne Ryan, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Overall, we're beginning the school year just like we ended it. We will continue with everyday in-person instruction for all. Regardless of vaccine status, everyone must wear a mask when indoors, but they are not required outside. In June, there was 3 feet of distance between students in the classroom, and that is the same for September, with adults remaining 6 feet from students. While eating indoors, students must stay 6 feet away. We will continue with our enhanced cleaning protocols, and all students in grades 3 through 12 will have or will be given Chromebooks. Like last year, due to adult social distancing requirements, all open houses will be virtual. What is different is that we have improved our ventilation. We purchased new air purifiers and placed them in every instructional space, and there are MERV 13 filters on the new HVAC units in the middle school gym and the high school seam wing. We have also hired additional staff to assist with social emotional health in the form of a district-wide social worker and a K-5 school counselor. While optional remote instruction is no longer required, students may still qualify for homebound instruction through a medical verification process. We will explain later in this presentation how we will provide instruction for those students who have to quarantine, but you will also hear about the updated close contact rules that will reduce the number of students who must do so. Dr. Lutinsky?
Thank you. Almost everything you see on this slide is from last year. So when we took our experience into consideration, everything that worked for us to keep our students and staff safe, we did this year. So you'll see classrooms will be arranged with 3 feet of space between students, 6 feet between students and staff, and 6 feet between staff members. All other areas, we're looking for 6 feet between students. Hallways and stairwells, one way. Unfortunately, middle school, high school lockers won't be used yet. We have about 900 bodies on this campus, and in the 3 minutes between classes, those hallways are full. So at the moment, we're not going to be using lockers because that will clog things up. You do see here, though, that Mr. Scarantino will be explaining that FEB locker use is going to be a little bit different. Phys ed classes, music, certain music such as singing or wind instruments will be 6 feet apart. And then all those beginning and end of the day systems we use, like the staggered times and drop-off locations by building, will be still in place, and that'll also help the flow of traffic. Mr. Bavaro? The daily questionnaires and temperature checks are no longer a CDC or state education department recommendation. Neither were found to be effective. Their change in guidance is similar to the discovery that the desk shields we had to use last year were ineffective. The questionnaires were always an honor system, but we will be sending reminders regarding symptoms and when to stay home, as well as posting the Department of Health toolkit, which has a very useful diagram for decision-making. You see at the bottom of this slide, the link, "Can my child go to school today?" That's what we used last year, and it's a helpful chart in deciding if they have a certain symptom, what to do. With regards to temperature checks, we will still keep the temporal thermometers around when we need them. But upon entry, sweaty heads with bike helmets in warm weather or uncovered heads standing outside in cold weather confounded the thermometers. Even with those measures last year, we found that students, teachers, and nurses identifying symptoms during the day were the primary means of identifying students who were ill and sending them home. Ms. Ryan?
Our sickness protocol will continue to follow the CDC and Department of Health guidance. If anyone begins to exhibit symptoms of COVID-19 during the school day, they will be sent to the nurse's office for assessment. Each building has designated an isolation room where symptomatic individuals remain until pickup or departure is arranged. Any areas used by individuals suspected of having COVID will be closed off and appropriately disinfected and cleaned. Anyone exhibiting symptoms or with a confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19 must satisfy the CDC and DOH return to school guidelines. Carolyn?
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. I'm Carolyn Bahar. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business. I'm going to talk a little bit about facilities and cleaning protocols. So as we did last year, our custodial staff has a plan in place for keeping our facilities as healthy and clean as possible. And a big focus of that is bringing fresh air into the spaces. We're going to, as we did last year, we're going to keep windows open and doors open when the temperature allows. I know even last year when it was cold, we still kept the windows open a bit to bring fresh air in. Every classroom in the district is equipped with a box fan to help circulate air. This year, as Mrs. Ryan mentioned, we've put air purifiers into each educational space, and our HVAC units in the district are equipped with MERV filters. And our new buildings, the middle school, high school campus, use MERV 13 filters, and all of our other units use MERV 11. And we operate those units on daytime settings, which helps us cycle the air and purge the air more frequently during the week. So even when the kids and the staff go home at night, we're still cycling that air to make sure our buildings have as much fresh air as possible. We also have cleaning protocols in place, and the guide that our custodial team follows is what, how, and how often. So what do we clean? Throughout the day, we focus on high touch areas, that's things the students and staff touch, so doors, railings, things like that. We also clean our bathrooms throughout the day, and we're maintaining that we're not going to use water fountains again this year. All buildings have bottle refilling stations, so students will be able to use those. Overnight, we switched to a deep clean program, and that's when we use our electrostatic disinfectant sprayers, which help us clean more effectively and thoroughly in the least amount of time. And we also only use in our sprayers and in other products EPA approved cleaning and sanitizing products that are EPA certified to kill the COVID-19 virus. Our custodial team also maintains logs for each building area, so it ensures that the building, all spaces in the building are cleaned, and we've covered every area every day. And now we're going to transition to slides that speak more to school-specific information. So I'm going to pass the presentation off to Mrs. Goldberg.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tara Goldberg, the principal of Daniel Warren. To further share what this looks like for our kindergartners, our first and second grade students, you can imagine that in our very large kindergarten classrooms, we have tables where we're using 3 feet of distancing for their seat spots. We have desks in our first and second grade classrooms and in our other classrooms with 3 feet of distancing. We're maintaining our floor markers for the bathrooms, where you wait your turn, where you wait to wash your hands, all of the visuals that help remind our young learners to do these important procedures and wear their masks, of course. I'd like to speak specifically to the very busy times of our arrival, dismissal, lunch, and recess. So morning arrival at Daniel Warren will remain staggered. The students begin entering the building at 8:25 to 8:45, and they go directly to their classroom. Just like last year, you can drop your child off anytime during that window. We have both entrances, the main entrance archway and that side front entrance open for all students. Staff are supporting the arrival, opening the car doors, escorting students to the doors, and we have staff inside the building, in the hallways, in the stairwells, at the door frames, making sure that our unfamiliar new kindergartners and our senior second graders are getting to their classrooms safely. For dismissal, we have staggered the times for each grade having a designated pickup time, starting with our kindergarten at 2:40. That's a slight revision from last year. So 2:40 pickup for kindergarten, 2:50 for first grade, and 3 o'clock for our second grade. And like last year, if you have a first and second grader and you want them to be ready with your kindergartner, we can arrange that if requested. Just let us know and we'll have both of your children ready together. One other important procedure we want to put in place is masks being worn during the dismissal process. We recognize that it's outside, but we also know it's congested, where you can often be less than 3 feet. So we're having staff, I apologize for my son. We have staff wearing, of all the times he walks by, right? It's my time to present. But we have staff wearing masks at dismissal. We're asking the children to wear masks until they're picked up by their parents. So that is for dismissal. We did email our arrival and dismissal map. That was emailed on Wednesday to families, and it's on our website. If you go to the Daniel Warren website, you'll be able to find it there under general information, and you can see the map and familiarize yourself with the procedures. I'm going to go on to the next slide. So for lunch and recess, we are continuing with 6 feet of distancing when eating indoors and outdoors. So the indoor seating chart is used for consistency and contact tracing. So every student has been assigned a seat spot that they'll sit at all year with their classroom. So they remain sitting with their own class when inside in our cafeteria. The times are staggered to allow one grade to eat at one time. So we have our first grade at 11:20. They eat first and recess follows that at 11:50. Second grade starts their lunch at 11:50, followed by recess. And kindergarten eats last at 12:20. And that's actually intended to allow them to have a snack and a really rigorous morning for their academics, so that in the afternoon, when they're a bit more fatigued, it's not as academic heavy for them. So students are going to eat outdoors every day. We really enjoy doing that this past year. We want to maintain that, weather permitting. And in case of inclement weather, they eat in the cafeteria. We have a hot and cold option this year. So we're excited to offer both to families. Grab and go options will be available. And if it's inclement weather and students are eating indoors, they will wear their mask when they're not eating. And indoor recess is by class. So rather than them staying in the auditorium or needing to go back to their classroom, we've scheduled the specialty areas, the library, the Wonder Studio, the music room, the gymnasium, the art room, for example, assigned for each class to go to and have that necessary break. For snack time, we're providing 6 feet of distancing as well. So teachers do that in a variety of ways, depending on the schedule for the day. They may take their class outside to eat for snack. They may use the cafeteria in their seat spots, or they may have like half of their class step out, eat outside the room with an assistant, while the other half stays in with the distancing, and then flip-flop. So those are some of the ways that we'll build snack into our day as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Scarantino. I'm the principal over at F.E. Bellows down the road from Daniel Warren. And at Bellows, morning entry times have been revised with the removal of health screeners and temperature checks in mind. So each grade level entry time is about 5 minutes apart, as you can see on the screen. However, we will continue our practice of allowing younger siblings to still enter at the same time through the elder sibling entry doorway. All students will go directly to classrooms prior to teachers allowing them to go out to use their lockers. This will all happen in a very orderly and scheduled fashion, adhering to the 3 feet of distance and the mask wearing. Additional teaching assistant supervision will be in place in the hallways during this time. Dismissal times have always been staggered at Bellows, and so we'll continue that practice moving forward. Families are asked to please leave the premises, though, and not gather or congregate on the Bellows property once their child or children are picked up. This is mostly intended to allow and ensure the car line moves in a safe and effective manner. Remember, it is a public street, and so the rules of the law apply to everyone. The sibling rule or procedure also continues at dismissal. So what will happen is, when the 5th graders are dismissed at 3 o'clock, if you have a younger child in 3rd or 4th grade, that 5th grade student will go to that 4th grade homeroom or 3rd grade homeroom, pick up their brother or sister, and then walk out the younger sibling doorway. That's a lot easier than them going all the way back across maybe and going out their entry doorway for 5th grade. I kindly remind you that all of this information was shared with families in the teacher assignment letters mailed out last week. So please take a look at it. We are going to, next slide, please. We will be attempting to use lockers, and we'll be assessing that this fall, as a classroom space is at a premium right now with the 3 feet of distance between students sitting at desks at Bellows. Students will be assigned a color, whether blue, red, green, or yellow. These colored zones will allow teachers to send students out following a staggered hallway plan so that we can ensure social distancing is taking place. They will be allowed access to lockers 4 times during the day, and the 4 times are as follows. Once in the morning, after everyone has been accounted for at entry, teachers will then start to send students out in the hallway following the zone colored protocol. They will go to store their snack, their personal electronic devices, and if that is the case, we do recommend sending your children in with a locker. We'll help them learn how to use it. And coats and backpacks. They'll also be sent out to retrieve their snack during snack time, to retrieve their lunch during lunchtime, and then to pack up at the end of the school day. Each grade level will continue to have their own dedicated lunch period here at Bellows. We will continue the very safe and successful split lunch model, in which half of a grade level spends a part of their lunch recess time at recess, while the other half is enjoying recess activities. At the halfway point of this period, they switch to ensure that both groups have time to eat and play safely. In the case of inclement weather, we will still follow the split assignments that we schedule here at Bellows. One group will stay in the cafeteria, the other group will go to the auditorium. Seats will be assigned by class, and the school monitors will ensure that students are following the 6 feet of distance rules and seating that will be taking place in those indoor spaces. They will be allowed to take their district issue Chromebooks with them to engage in district approved web-based games while they're on an indoor recess plan. The groups will change every 2 to 3 weeks to allow students to have lunch with other grade level classmates throughout the school year. So here's a great example. If the first 3 weeks, 3DA, 3RF, and 3SM are scheduled to have recess first, they'll do that while the other 4 third grade sections are eating lunch. The 3-week plan will change, and then we'll just mix up the groups. So 3SL will be with 3DA and 3RF, and maybe we'll throw in a little 3ACEL, but we'll mix it up across the 3 weeks so students are able to reconnect and keep their social connections that they've built in their time at Daniel Warren and will continue to build here at Bellows. We are also serving hot lunch this school year at Bellows, just like Daniel Warren. And a teacher-created snack schedule will be followed by grade level teams to ensure we are not overcrowding any indoor or outdoor available spaces and that we're able to adhere to the 6 foot of distance rule for eating. Dr. Barker and Dr. Wilson.
Actually,
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
it's me.
It's Sarah Goldberg.
Thank you. So there may be times during the school year when a student may be quarantined. For the elementary schools, we have created a schedule, I believe you can see it here, that provides synchronous learning while your child learns from home, allowing them to participate in their studies, maintaining the pacing and delivery of instruction that is taking place in their classroom during their quarantine period. If this is needed for a family, Mr. Scarantino and I will invite your child to our remote Google Classroom for that grade, where there will be a Meet link and all of the resources they need. This is very familiar. We used this last year and found it successful, so that'll be a similar procedure. I want to walk you through an example of a day. So if you're looking at the chart shared, it's a K to 5th grade plan. I'm just going to look at 2nd grade. They would start their morning at 8:50 with Miss Suhu for math instruction. So there, Miss Suhu will have the lesson plans from the 2nd grade teacher. She will be able to deliver that for your child. Following that period, there'll be some time for some asynchronous work using our online resources that align to our instruction, the iReady, the RazKids, the Dreambox. We then have a writing workshop built in with Ms. Muir. So she will, again, work on the writing piece that your child's been working on within the unit that they're in, the lesson that they would have been receiving in person with their teacher. There's another asynchronous period for foundations. Again, that's our word work. Lunch and recess, little downtime, little break. Coming back for a special. This would be something created by, Mrs. Goodman or Ms. Kowalczyk or Movement with Coach Fazio. So there'll be a link in there for that. We then have another synchronous opportunity for reading workshop with Ms. Sapola, our reading specialist. So she would deliver the lesson for reading that would have been taught in school for your child that the teacher was teaching. And then we end the day with a read aloud with Ms. Tansley Jervis for each grade. So as you can imagine, your child would do the flow of the day. The resources would be in the Google Classroom. They would be able to keep up for the time they're out. Often that's between 5 days to 8 days. As with 10 days typically being a quarantine, there's a weekend there. So it's a few days that we want to make sure that they're feeling connected and able to be engaged with the work that they would be doing here at school.
Yes, as Ms. Goldberg shared, you'll notice faculty has really been assigned in a really specific content area way. So there will be go-to educators that are already will be working directly with your child in some capacity across the school year. And so students will be familiar with these educators, but these educators will also be people who really understand the curriculum that's being covered and taught while your child is at home receiving remote learning instruction. It allows us to ensure that the content is being delivered and we're maintaining that supportive student-teacher relationship that you've come to value here in Rhinebeck. And now I'll pass it on to Dr. Barker and Dr. Wilson.
Good evening. I'm Tina Wilson, principal of the high school.
Good evening. I'm Dulce Barker, principal of the middle school.
Together, we will highlight procedures that are specific to the middle school high school campus. The middle school high school campus will return to the regular pre-pandemic schedule with first class beginning at 7:50 a.m., first period actually, and ninth period ending at 2:45. We will once again in the high school not have study halls, period 1 in the high school. Therefore, high school students should not report to school until 15 minutes before their first scheduled class or homeroom, whichever comes first. Similar to last year, the library has been repurposed as a classroom space, as well as a space to accommodate overflow from classes and the high school lunch.
As like last year, in order to maintain social distancing, lockers will not be utilized in the middle school and high school.
Though we are hopeful that new quarantine guidelines will help to reduce the number of student quarantines, it is possible that some students may have to quarantine, and we will be providing Google Meet links so that students can join class remotely. However, on some occasions, you may find that teachers will provide alternate asynchronous assignments. So an example that I'm going to use is ceramics taught by Mrs. Fontecchio. Oftentimes requires the use of a kiln, which is only available at school. So she might provide an alternate task.
Entry and dismissal into the middle school will be very similar to last year. Their students will report to 3 different entrances depending upon their grade level. Grade 6 will enter the middle school through the main entrance. Their dismissals will be staggered as well in order to maintain social distancing. When they enter, you will see, or right before they enter outside, there are blue and black dots on the sidewalk, and that will help students in order to maintain social distancing. Grade 7 will enter the middle school on the east entrance opposite the main entrance, and they will be dismissed at 2:42. Grade 8 will enter through B corridor, and dismissal will be at 2:45.
The high school will also utilize multiple entrances. However, instead of the 4 entrances that they used last year, they will just simply be using the doors that are located outside the high school main entrance. 9th and 10th graders will use the doors that are closest to the library, while students in grades 11 and 12 will use the doors that are closest to the PAC.
Next slide, please. Lunch at the middle school, again, will be very similar to last year. We are going to have 2 different cohorts. This is a way to ensure that there is the 6-foot distance between students as they eat. Lunch will take place in the dining hall. There will be 2 cohorts. Cohort 1 will eat while cohort 2 will be outside at recess. Halfway through the period, the cohorts will switch. And also when the group eats first, we'll switch depending upon whether it's an ACE or a BDF day. Students, once they report to the dining hall, will choose a seat, and the seat will be recorded for purposes of contact tracing.
The high school will continue to have lunch during periods 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As always, 11th and 12th graders may continue to leave campus for lunch. Students who remain on campus will have options indoor and outdoor to dine. Indoors, they can eat in the dining hall. Students will need to complete the seating chart Google form that they utilized last year, so the chairs remain numbered on the back of the seats so that the students can indicate where they sat during a period on a particular day. Once the dining hall is full, overflow will be accommodated in the community room. Seats are spaced at 6 feet there, and in that location, library staff will maintain the seating chart. Outdoors, they can sit at any one of the benches or picnic tables that are located around campus, and we've increased that number over the course of the last year. One of the options is under the eaves by the main entrance of the high school. We will also be covering several of the outdoor patios to accommodate high school students who wish to eat outdoors. Regardless of whether they choose to eat outside at a picnic table or bench or in the dining hall, students may not receive food deliveries to campus.
Good evening. My name is Diane Santangelo. I'm the Administrator of Special Services, and I will address the specifics regarding special education tonight. To ensure we're addressing specific high needs students, students with disabilities will be ensured equal access to the same opportunities as the general education student population. And further, each student with a disability will be provided the special education services or the accommodations identified in their individualized education plan or 504 plan. If a substantial change to a student's education placement or accommodations are needed, we will continue to utilize the program review meeting or amendment process when it's called for. And we also will continue to ensure that special education and 504 evaluations, that is both initial and reevaluations, are conducted consistently with state and federal guidance and within required timelines. These evaluations will be done in person. If a parent has concerns or questions regarding their child's IEP or 504 plan and service, they should contact either their child's supervisory teacher, who is the case coordinator, or the school psychologist to address their concerns and questions. Specifically, that would be Michelle Bowman, who's the school psychologist for grades K-1 at the Daniel Warren School, Dr. Finkelson, who's the school psychologist for grade 2 at Daniel Warren, Vanessa Diaguardi, who's the school psychologist for grades 3 through 5, and Christina Schlody, who's my department chairperson. She could address these grades 6 through 12, or Dr. Nicole Crispinelli can assist you, and she's the school psychologist, grades 9 through 12th grade. They will be more than willing to assist. Thank you.
We, as we would in any normal circumstances, continue to promote mental health education. When we surveyed the community at the end of last year, the response was clear that mental health was a priority for our students. So we hired a district-wide social worker and an elementary school counselor to assist. In addition, we will continue to monitor students using the response to intervention or multi-tiered system of supports model. Grades 3 through 8 employ the ruler program, and the high school is beginning DBT. Dr. Fite.
Good evening. I'm Valerie Fite, Director of School-Wide Enrichment. We are a district whose mission is to prepare each student for life by fostering creativity, critical thinking, curiosity, and a lifelong love of learning. Rhinebeck will continue the school-wide enrichment model, which offers innovative, cutting-edge programs that are integrated into classroom content and extend beyond our classroom walls. The school-wide enrichment model provides a flexible blueprint for total district enhancement with inquiry-based opportunities for all students to develop and identify their strengths and their interests. Rhinebeck is committed to the success of every student in our school community, to creating an environment that fosters high academic achievement, focuses on individual talent development, and instill strong character traits necessary for a lifelong commitment to learning. One of the positives from last year was the growth of homeschool connections with interactive online programs. This year, our program will be both in person and online. So please look for my emails, and I look forward to having you join us. To learn more about the school-wide enrichment model, please visit the SEM School-Wide Enrichment Model page on our new website. As always, feel free to reach out to me with your questions and to discuss your child and how to make the most of your Rhinebeck educational journey. Thank you. Mrs. Ryan?
So our attendance will look much like it looked back on March 13th, 2020. There will no longer be a remote option, and absences will return to excused or unexcused. Prior to COVID, students could be homebound for a medical reason, and this still holds true. This homebound instruction will look different based on the student's grade. And if a parent prefers, students can be homeschooled. Dr. Lutinsky?
Extracurricular activities for students, such as clubs, theater, and music, should be close to normal. We plan on having our theater and music groups perform, although we will have to see what kind of indoor audiences we can safely accommodate. The CDC recommends that student athletes in high transmission areas be vaccinated for COVID-19 in order to participate in extracurricular athletic programs, particularly high-risk sports. The Lower Hudson Council of School Superintendents, of which we are a part, supports this health and safety position and recommends that all student athletes be vaccinated against COVID in order to limit exposure, reduce quarantines, and keep our athletics programs up and running. The Westchester County Department of Health has adopted a resolution supporting this position and strongly recommends that all athletes be vaccinated. The importance of athletics for mental and physical health and well-being of our young people is critical, and it's our desire to keep programs running for the full season. Vaccinations, along with other important mitigation efforts that we've described here, will help us keep our programs running for our students. Mr. Scarantino?
The safety of all our students, staff, faculty, and families is of utmost importance to us. In place, we will be, duty assignments will focus on the close monitoring of our outdoor spaces and when outdoor learning or activities are taking place. We are still mandated to conduct our drills and follow emergency procedures, but we will do so with social distancing in mind, particularly in areas where people may assemble in larger groups. Shelter and lockdowns assume a much more serious and immediate threat than the coronavirus, creating a situation in which students or staff may have to hide as they normally would, or with some minor adjustments. In this case, where a drill is being conducted, verbal instructions and discussions about what to do for a lockdown or shelter in place will occur rather than huddling together. In other words, if there is ever real need for a lockdown or a shelter in place, they will be asked to huddle. But while we're drilling and practicing these very important procedures, they won't. Physical education classes outdoors will continue, weather permitting, of course, and follow all of the same practices and procedures established for those classes last spring. Finally, we increased the number of exterior speakers on all school grounds to ensure any announcements, emergency or not, can be heard during outdoor lessons or activities.
Just like last year, at this time, we still need consent to test students or staff for COVID-19. With consent, we can continue to perform surveillance testing using the rapid tests provided by the New York State Department of Health. This year, we have a couple of new partnerships to assist with the testing. The first is with Affinity Labs, who are conducting pool testing for free because their funding is coming from a federal grant. We also have partnered with the Westchester County Department of Health to conduct regular testing through Mount Sinai. More information will be coming soon about this partnership. And on August 11th, we hosted a Westchester County Department of Health vaccination clinic. The second one will be on September 1st on the middle school, high school campus in the library. Those that received their first dose on August 11th have appointments to return here next week. It is open, though, for those who would like to receive their first dose. If you come in and get your first dose, the Westchester County Department of Health will assist those newcomers in making an appointment for their second shot. Next slide, please. One of the biggest changes from last year is the exception to the close contact rule. A close contact is defined as someone who was within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative total of 10 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. But now the exception says that in the K-12 indoor classroom setting, the close contact definition excludes students who were within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student if all students correctly and consistently wore their masks the entire time. This means if the masks are worn correctly indoors, there should be very few quarantines. Obviously, when students are eating, masks are off, so the exception rule will not apply. Anyone who is fully vaccinated will not have to quarantine. I'll send it back to you, Dr. Lutinsky.
Thank you. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge a question that came in on our Q&A, and it basically asks, will middle school students have an opportunity to eat outside? So the answer is yes, weather permitting, of course. What the middle school, as Dr. Barker explained, the middle school is doing kind of a split shift to have recess lunch or lunch recess system. And in practice, what we've found is that what the kids like to do is just take their lunch outside and have an extended recess, which is absolutely fine. So there will be opportunities, again, weather permitting, for students to eat outside. So looking ahead, we'll continue to use our blast emails, weekly communications, and our new website, rhinec.org, to communicate any updates or changes. One way that we'll be using the website is to keep the community up to date on COVID cases within our student and staff population. Rather than send a blast email out for each case as we did last year, we will post the same kind of non-identifying information under our COVID tab, and I will include a summary in my weekly updates. Information specific to each building will be communicated by the building principals. I've been asked about metrics and thresholds for school closures. The Department of Health has cautioned us against fixating on averages and ratios, such as you find on their own website. Rather, we would look at specific cases and how they impact our schools. For example, if enough staff members become ill or quarantined, it may require a class or grade to go full remote for a time. Our student cases last year were almost never attributed to in-school infections and almost never came in clusters. So the presence of COVID is obviously not itself a cause for a closure. However, as we manage these cases, we are very conscious of Delta and will work closely with the Department of Health to make sure that individual cases do not become super spreaders. The regular in-school testing that Mrs. Ryan outlined will help us monitor our infection rates. Nobody wants to go back to a hybrid model, but we know how to do that and could if we needed to. Similarly, we could transition to a full remote schedule if safety demanded that we close. I'd rather not go to the well too often and ask for more of your flexibility and patience. But from my perspective, that's what got us through last year. We're going to keep working further toward our goal of normalcy and give our students all the joyful ups and downs of growing up. With our students, families, and staff working together, we have proven that we're up to the challenge. I look forward to seeing our students on September 1st. Thank you, and have a good night.